Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here with Thoughtful Creativity, and once again, you guys know that we love to do that. Once again, we're using a simple geometric shape to sew and draft something beautiful for ourselves, and this time it's nothing else but a very simple circle. So let's talk some measurements, let's talk some tips and tricks. Stay tuned and let's get started. So the first measurement and the only measurement, should you choose to make this into a sleeveless vest instead of a coat or a cardigan, is the length of the actual pattern. You're going to take your measuring tape, you're going to place it on the back neckline, and you're going to drop it as low as you want it to be. Now, mine is going to be 30 inches. However, if I take that length as 30 inches, which is also going to be the width of our pattern, which is also going to be the diameter of the circle, so it has to play nice on both sides, on the width and on the length. So if I only take 30 inches, it's actually going to be quite short because we have to account for the kind of like the shawl element that goes on top of the cardigan. So we need to add length to that. So what I did is I divided my measurement by 2, which gives me 15, right? The full measurement is 30, half of it is 15, and then I added it back to the length of my desired pattern, and it's going to be 30 plus 15, 45, and that is going to be my final diameter for my circle, which again is going to be the length and the width of my pattern. So now we're actually going to draft our pattern, and yes, I do draft my circle on the paper. However, I do a quarter of a circle. We don't need a full one, just a quarter, and for that you're going to use half of your full length measurement. So for me that was 45, half is going to be 22 and a half. However, my printer sheets, and yes, I ran out of my wrapping paper that I usually use for my drafting, so I'm just using printer sheets that are taped together. So my printer sheets just conveniently land at 22 inches. So I'm just going to take 22 inches, and then as I'm cutting, I'm going to add a little bit of length to it to account for the hem and for the half an inch that I'm missing. So you're going to take 22 for the width, 22 for the length, and for yourself, of course, you're going to be using your own measurements, and then you're going to make that into a quarter of a circle. Now the next thing is we need to measure your distance between one shoulder to another shoulder, so that way we actually know where to place your armholes. So it's really easy. You can either measure it on the back or on the front, just like so, or you can cheat a little bit and you can take a t-shirt that you already own or a blouse that you already own, and you can fold it in half, lay it in your pattern, and mark the beginning of the shoulder there. Just make sure that the shoulder that you're marking is not a drop shoulder, but it's actually sitting on the edge of the shoulder like a fitted t-shirt or a fitted blouse. Here I'm placing half of the measurement of the width of my shoulders, which gives me 8 inches on the fold. In total it's going to be 16 inches, and I'm placing this measurement approximately in the middle of the left side of my quarter circle. So the full side is 22 inches and the middle of that is going to be 11 inches. Now, go ahead and place your fabric right sides together or wrong sides together, whichever way you prefer. At this point, it doesn't really matter. And then place your quarter circle with the center of the circle facing the fold of your fabric. And then let's cut the top part. Now, just remember that I still need to add half an inch to the side of the circle plus an inch for the hem. So that's the reason why you see me cut the circle a little bit wider than it actually is. Once you have the top part of the circle cut, it's really easy. Just go ahead, fold it onto itself, just make sure that you follow the center of the circle and keep it nice and neat, and then you just cut it again, and ta-da! Once you're ready to unfold it, you will have a full circle. So for fabric here, I'm using medium to heavyweight knit, which brings me to the next point. The fabric doesn't have to be stretchy. It's nice if it's stretchy, but it doesn't have to be stretchy. You can make it out of woven fabric that has no stretch whatsoever. However, if I were you, I would go to medium to heavyweight fabric because that's what's going to give you those beautiful waterfall elements of this cardigan or coat. If you go for something that's really flimsy, it's just going to look very floppy, I would say. Is that the word? Yeah, just very floppy, and it's not gonna give you that exaggerated wave look that we're going for. And it's also not gonna fall into folds as neatly as a heavy fabric would. So definitely choose your fabric wisely, because that's what's going to make or break your garment. For this next step, not to bore you with any complicated math, we will need to do a little bit of eyeballing, but stay with me, this is really easy. So if I were you, I would maybe start with the measurements that I'm going for, and then you can adjust and see if you need to make it smaller or bigger. So I'm taking 7 inches for the length, and then 4 inches for the width, and that's gonna go right in the middle. And then we're going to turn this into an oval. After that, cut it out and see what we're gonna do next. So then when it's ready, you can do this. There we go. And if you feel that, okay, yeah, it fits, then go ahead and cut out your armholes. And if you are a member of the channel, then lucky you, you actually have a little cheat sheet for the armhole, so that way it's a little bit easier for you to cut it out and you don't have to kind of fiddle around with measuring it. And you also have the instruction sheet that goes along with this pattern. If you're not a member, then you can definitely check it out in the description below and see what it's all about. Now go ahead and take your pattern and place it back on the top part of the circle, and with pin needles mark the placement of the armholes. Now before you're ready to cut, please listen to the wise words. This is where an old bed sheet or a scrap piece of fabric that you're not gonna use will come in really handy, because you only get one chance at it, okay? So what you wanna do is you don't have to draft the whole circle and mimic the whole pattern. You can just take a length from here till about here, from a little bit further than your shoulder till a little bit further than another shoulder, and cut out your armholes and put it on yourself, so that way you can really see if the placement of their armholes really is the one that you're going for. Because again, you only get one chance at it. All of the great designers do mock patterns and toiles and whatnot, and if we want to make something beautiful for ourselves, you know what, that's the way to go. And if some people say that's a little bit too much work for them, well, what can I say? It's just the way of life, you know. Sometimes you have to do a mock pattern in order to do something beautiful, and it only takes a little bit, because I did cut my armholes a little bit too far apart, and if you are in the same boat as me, stay with me, I'll show you how to fix that. But once you're ready, let's cut out your armholes. I did reposition my armholes, so instead of being just 11 inches from the center of my circle, I brought them down 4 inches more, and then I placed my template on my pattern and I'm going to cut it. For the sleeve, you can again copy a sleeve pattern from a t-shirt that you already have or a top that you really love, or you can draft your own. You can take a measuring tape, you're going to put it around like so, but you want to give yourself quite a bit of room. You know why? Because for me, that's going to be like a cardigan slash coat, and I will be wearing layers underneath, so I don't want it to be too tight, okay? I want it to have some room. And then you take it away, and half of the measurement was going to go on your pattern piece. And for the length of your sleeve, just going to place it on the edge of the shoulder like this and drop it as long as you want it to go, and then just note that measurement, and that's going to be the length of your sleeve. Just remember, you want to add a little bit for the hem of the sleeve as well, or maybe you're going to make a cuff, so definitely make sure that those details you don't miss when you are cutting out your pattern. Now, since I'm using a sleeve from a previous pattern that I've drafted, this is a little diagram that is going to show you where the measurements should go. So this is half of your armhole measurement, this is your sleeve length, and this is going to be half of your wrist measurement. Don't forget to add a little bit of wiggle room over here, so that way it's not too tight, and then you just connect it on the bottom. This is going to be your sleeve. Now, here's an important part. This measurement over here needs to equal this one side of the oval, okay? And if you're not sure, you can always just grab your measuring tape and you can just measure it like so. Just measure it, measure, 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 and then compare it to a half of your armhole measurement. And just make sure that this side equals this side, because you will need to fit this sleeve into this armhole. Once your sleeve pattern is done, go ahead and cut it out. Remember that you're cutting your sleeve on the fold, so make sure that you place your fabric in a correct manner, and then cut 2 sleeves, and then let's sew it. So for me, one of the first steps is to actually hem the sleeve since I'm using a cover stitch machine. If you're using a sewing machine, that's awesome. You can actually do this step as one of the last things of this project. Now, once the hem of my sleeve is done, go ahead and place your sleeves right sides together and match the side seam of your sleeves and then sew it all together. Now that the sleeves are all sewn together, go ahead and take your cardigan. Just make sure that it's facing the correct way. So the top is facing up, the bottom is facing down, and take the armholes that you've just cut out and define where is the center top of the oval and where is the center bottom of the oval. Now, take your sleeve and you're going to match the center bottom of the armhole with the center bottom seam of your sleeve, and you're gonna sew it all together in a circle. And this is how your sleeve is going to look like when it's all done. After that, all you have to do is to hem your circle, and there's so many ways how to do it, and it really depends on the type of fabric that you're using for this project. So for me, I'm going to fold it over 1/2 inch, then another 1/2 inch, and then after that I'm going to use a blind hem stitch for the hem of my circle, which is going to look like this as the end result. Oh yes, and if you did cut your shoulder line a little bit too wide, here's what you can do to take it in. Go ahead and fold your cardigan right sides together in half. Then make sure that you're working with the top part of your cardigan and determine by how much you need to take in your shoulder line. For me, that's 1 inch on the fold and 2 inches altogether. So make a vertical 1 inch stitch, just like I'm doing here. After that, go ahead and press that fold flat and do a horizontal stitch that's going to be 2 inches wide. And that's it, you've created a pleat that's going to take in your shoulder line. And that's it! Your cardigan slash vest slash coat is finally ready and it's ready to be worn. And the coolest part about this design particularly is that it doesn't have to be just an open cardigan. You can belt it, you can wear it with so many different layers, you can wear it with a scarf, you can install a button or a brooch. I mean, so many different possibilities. It almost makes me feel a little avant-garde because it's so asymmetric if you want it to be, and it's just a fun piece to play around. So definitely do that. Happy sewing, happy drafting. If you're new here, then subscribe and check out these other videos that you see on your screen right now for more drafting and sewing tutorials. And until next time, happy sewing, guys. Bye.